Judgment is truly a one-of-a-kind experience, with exciting and intuitive off-the-walls action, a dark and gripping story that will keep you on the edge of your seat, so much to do that it can sometimes feel overwhelming. Judgment can feel like walking into an arcade and not knowing which games to spend your coins on, and other times it feels like a binge-worthy crime drama that will keep you questioning until the very end. If you're a fan of the Yakuza series, this will sound pretty familiar to you because Judgment is a spin-off. And although you won't be running into Kiryu at any point, Judgment does an incredible job of standing on its own and sometimes even surpasses its origins. As always, no spoilers in this review, but I really want you guys to check this game out for yourself, so let me try to convince you. In Judgment, you play as Yagami, an ex-lawyer turned detective on a mission to solve the mystery of a series of murders in the city of Kamurocho. The same city, by the way, that features in pretty much every other Yakuza game. The Yakuza franchise really is king when it comes to storytelling and gaming, and I think the reason for this is how different it approaches presenting the plot compared to other games. Telling a story to someone playing a game is pretty easy to screw up. For one, you don't want the player getting bored with long drawn-out cutscenes because all they want to do is get back to playing the game, but you also want your story to be strong enough to keep the player wanting to progress. Take a game like God of War, which does a great job of finding the middle ground between gameplay and storytelling. Each segment of the game perfectly weaves into each other to make you believe that the story is the gameplay. Judgment, and the whole Yakuza series for that matter, is unique because it's practically trying to do the opposite. While there are these long cinematic moments of storytelling in Judgment, compared to the gameplay, it doesn't even feel like the same game. One minute you're interrogating a mob boss who's a suspected serial killer, and the next you're trying to catch some bald guy's wig that flew away in the wind. In a lot of ways it's unconventional, but it keeps Judgment fresh all throughout the game. Mystery stories are also kind of challenging for a game to properly pull off without being either too predictable or way too convoluted. I'd say Judgment, for the most part, walks this line very carefully. Although there are some moments where I was able to predict the answer to some of the mysteries before Yagami was able to, the hardest hitting twist still felt very satisfying. I love when a story keeps you guessing all throughout, and Judgment honestly does a great job of both keeping the pace up and delivering on an absolute nail-biter of an adventure. Although nobody from past Yakuza titles shows up in Judgment, I'm very happy with the ensemble of characters introduced in this game. Kaito is ex-Yakuza and Yagami's right-hand man. Although everyone around him writes Kaito off as dense, he's loyal to a T. Jester is a mysterious ally and also the leader of a group of Robin Hood-esque thieves. They basically just parkour around the city all day. Look, there is a ridiculous amount of characters in Judgment, but you know it's a great story when you can remember all of their names, even minor characters, after finishing. The best part is, if you get a bit confused about a character or their motivations, there's even a helpful case file in the menu to keep you on track. Learning the backstories and secrets of these characters is truly where Judgment shines the brightest, and I'm pretty excited to see what they get up to as the series continues. So you might be thinking, how can exploration feel fresh if they're just reusing the same map they've used since 2005? Well listen, Kamurocho is the most dynamic city in fictional history. While the streets remain the same, the activities you partake in are ever changing. This time around we get VR gaming, dating, gambling, darts. We still get 3 different versions of Mahjong, even though I'm pretty confident that we all have no clue what's going on in this game. There is a ridiculous amount to do in between story beats, which continues to build as you near the end of the game. By far my favorite activity has to be the drone racing, which lets you upgrade and customize your drone into an absolute speed demon. These races feel like Mario Kart in the sky, and I probably dropped 10 hours alone into this game mode while still wanting more. Also, can I just say, this game looks so good. You can literally count the strands of hair on Yagami's head, which is wild considering this game came out on the PS4 in 2018. This is the most cheesy video game review line I could possibly put out there, but you really do feel like you're walking the busy streets of Tokyo. I think the best way I could describe Judgement is that it's extremely freeing. In most of the Yakuza titles, you were constantly stuck in loading screens and ramming into invisible walls, but Judgement makes Kamurocho feel more and more like a sandbox. Now you can just walk into almost any building you come across, and if fights go south, it can easily turn into a chase with the cops. I do have a few pretty big complaints that I want to get into later regarding the exploration, but for the most part I absolutely fell in love with Kamurocho all over again. Remember these wacky, silly sub-stories that Yakuza is known for? Well, Judgement completely doubles down on those. Not only are there like 0 fetch quests in the side content, but they feel like real, full-fledged stories that continue throughout the rest of the game. They are just as ridiculous as always, but my favorite addition to the sub-stories has to be the side cases. These will have you investigating all over Kamurocho in mini bite-sized mysteries, which are the perfect burst of life that the game needed most. Sub-stories will also introduce you to tons of really great characters, and once you complete some of them, you'll even get to see these characters roaming the streets while you explore. I'm definitely going on too long about this, and I'm sure you can already tell how obsessed I am with this game, but really, all you gotta know is that there's a ridiculous amount of content in Judgement. I've played for over 60 hours so far, and I'm literally only 30% complete. It's crazy how we've made it this far into the video without even mentioning the main selling point of this series for new players, the combat. This is hands down the flashiest in the whole series. While it sticks to the classic mechanics from the rest of the Yakuza games, it just looks a whole lot cooler. There are so many different combos to unlock and learn that have Yagami doing these crazy flips and kicks. Key actions are back and they hit harder than ever, with even more fun finishers. I don't want to show too much because half of the fun is finding these attacks for yourself, but there's some real good ones. I'm pretty happy with the upgrading system in Judgement. It's a lot simpler to get used to than past games, but the abilities you unlock always keep the combat interesting. The boss fights are also pretty solid, although the difficulty definitely has a huge spike around the end of the game that's pretty ridiculous. The locations for these fights are all really unique and filled with new objects to pound into your enemies, which is great I guess. I don't know what else to say about the fights that won't spoil anything, but it's the build up that makes them really special. Okay, it's time to rip off the band-aid and hit some of the negatives. At some point in the story, they introduce this gang of bullies that randomly take over the city for an hour, making it impossible to go anywhere without getting into a fight. At first I was really excited about this idea, and then I realized just how often these guys show up. First, you get completely stopped in your tracks by a text message that pops up every time this event happens, which is so annoying. Then you're bombarded with one fight after another, making it impossible to go anywhere without constantly having to stop every 20 seconds. Sometimes you'll finish a fight and some guys will be standing off to the side waiting for their turn. It's incredibly annoying, and the only way to put an end to it is to fight these 4 pretty difficult bosses, which isn't even worth it because you know they'll be back in like 20 minutes. And dude, that's not even the half of it. These bosses can deal permanent damage, meaning no matter how many times they hit you with their crazy strong attacks, you won't be able to get that health back until you get a medkit. What's a medkit, you ask? Oh, it's just the item that you can only buy from one place on the far end of the map that cost 40,000 yen. I rarely even have 10,000 yen. It's not like you can just ignore it though. The permanent damage will literally stay the entire game unless you heal yourself with a medkit. I don't know why I'm getting so heated over a game, but the Keihin clan makes me want to jump off a building. Don't get me wrong, Judgement is probably one of my favorite games I played this year, but if it's not number 1 when I make my list, you guys can thank this stupid Keihin clan. In conclusion, although I just raged for a whole minute, Judgement is honestly the peak of storytelling in games. I've never seen a game juggle fun and seriousness so well, but here we are, and Judgement kicks ass. I'm gonna give it a 9.5 out of 10, it's really that good. And if medkits didn't exist, it'd probably be a 10. But dude, definitely play this game if you haven't already. I feel like I have so much more to say, but you really just gotta experience it for yourself. If you enjoyed this review, I'm gonna be covering every single Yakuza game in the series, so subscribe if you want to see that. I also do other things, but hey man, join us if you want. As always, keep gaming to the fullest, have a killer day, and I'll see you next week. Peace.